minutes purposes. So thanks to Linda for doing all of that. So let me call this meeting to order at 7:03. April 27th, 2023. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. We have a very short agenda, but what I'd like to do is find out just a little bit about everybody who's here before we get too far in. The first order of business is going to be able to get a vice chair. So I'm just going to go around the room if you don't mind. I don't want to put you on a spot, but it'll give you an opportunity to identify your name and your address. And if you do that and you just give me one of the reasons on your application that you felt you wanted to contribute to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, that would be helpful too. So like 30 seconds each. I don't want to put too many people on the spot. So let me start with the people that are in the room, and then we'll go to the people online. So we've got Irene. So Irene, can you give us a little about yourself?
Okay, my name's Irene Clement. I'm a long-term resident of Aurora, and I'm also on the Aurora Community Arboretum, have been for many years. And so I'm very interested in parks and passive recreation. As you know, the Arboretum is a mixed-use park, so we see a lot of soccer and baseball and stuff like that, but very much interested in having green space for the citizens of the town.
Marvelous, thanks. Karina?
Yes, my name, do I have to look at?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
Pick up
So my name is Karina. This is my first time in a meeting here in Aurora Town Hall. And I live in just somewhere very near the central building that is on Yonge Street. And the reason why I joined here is because, well, first of all, I'm new in Aurora. And I admit that I know nothing. I have no knowledge of other things. And I was thinking maybe it is better for me to join something like this, the Parks and Recreation, which does not require to, I don't mean it is easy. What I mean is, for example, like high-tech matters, I wouldn't know. So transportation, I have no idea. So that's why I joined.
Thanks, happy to have you here. So let's go to the people online. David, could you unmute yourself and let us know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Hi. So I've been in Aurora. My wife and I moved here 5 years ago. So we're relatively new residents. We really love it here. We live just off of Henderson, if anyone's familiar, kind of near the Young and I guess Henderson would be the main crossing. It's north of Bloomington. We have young children that are just starting to use a lot of the Parks and Rec services. So that's kind of where my interest stemmed from. I wanted to get involved more in the community. So in addition to this, I've taken on a position with the South Lake Foundation and also on as a board member with the Children's Aid Society here in York Region. So this was something that I felt I had an interest in, and I thought I could contribute.
Okay, thanks so much. Shaheen, can you unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you live, and your reasons for wanting to be here?
All right, so yep, here I am. Okay, so I'm Shaheen Maladina. I have a small business in Aurora, and I'm also a resident. I have been in Aurora for approximately 5 years. I'm close to David in location. I'm at Young and Bloomington, just off Ridge Road. And I chose to be on the Parks and Recreation program because I'm a passionate person towards children because of obviously what I do. And it was brought to my attention that we don't really have many accessible parks for children in wheelchairs. So that is one of my objectives of being on this committee.
Okay, thanks, Shaheen. Appreciate it. How about Jesse? Jesse, you're next. Can you unmute?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessie, obviously. I have lived in Aurora for 12 or 13 years, I think. I've worked in community education and recreation for 20, 25 years. I'm working on my Doctor of Education right now. And my kids are sort of aging out of a lot of the recreation activities, which is where all of my free time has gone for the last decade and a half or so, is volunteering for the local soccer club and baseball club and things like that. So I thought that this would be a nice way to sort of stay involved in the community on a volunteer basis when I'm not involved with the local sports teams as much anymore.
Okay, thanks so much, Jesse. And the last person we have online, I believe, is Michelle. Welcome, Michelle. Can you give us a little bit about Michelle?
Hi, thanks for having me. Sorry I couldn't be in person. I'm recovering from spinal surgery last week. But my name is Michelle Dakin. I've been a lifelong Aurora resident, so live here my entire life. I'm actively engaged in recreation with the town. I run the Aurora Ladies Fastball League, so actively engaged in that, and also I would think instrumental in ensuring that the town park and the diamond at the town park has been saved throughout the years, as the town has looked to do a variety of different things with it. So active with the council and the mayors throughout the years, and the parks department, to ensure that I'm advocating for sports fields across the town. So happy to be here. I wanted to get involved to ensure that we sustain with the new Parks and Recreational Plan our facilities across the town, and how I can be of help is to ensure from the sports view that we're advocating for not only the children but the adult recreational components as well.
Great, thanks, Michelle. I'm glad you're online, even though you're recovering from your surgery. I hope it went well. You're not related to the Mrs. Dakin from Holy Spirit, are you?
Yes, this is my mom.
No way. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
she taught both of my children, so say hi to her for me. She's a great woman, so thanks so much.
Yeah, no, we've been, so I know like a couple people are new, so I've been in Aurora for over 38 years, and my family's been in Aurora for probably closer to 70, 75 years, so lifelong residents.
Okay, thanks very much. Our first order of business tonight is to have an appointment of a committee chair. That's part of the reason why I wanted to ask people a little bit about themselves. Does anybody here, and now people online, if you know how to run what we have, you want to put your hand up, you just put your hand up, and I should be able to see that. And hopefully Linda will be able to help me as we're going through trying to identify that. So could I get a nomination for the vice chair of Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee? Now, this is a 2-year term from 2023 and 2024. And then we will switch around at the end of the second term, and we'll get somebody else or have the same person. But we want to give people an opportunity to participate as vice chair. The vice chair is there to do the things when the chair is not available primarily. So it's not as though you have more work. It's just a little responsibility if I'm not going to be around, and I don't intend not being around too often. So who would like to nominate someone? And you can nominate yourself, by the way. So if you would like to take on the position for any personal reason, please let me know. So the floor is open for a nomination. Michelle, I see you on the screen here. Does that mean that you're nominating yourself for the vice chair?
I wasn't, but if there is no other takers, I'm glad to put myself up if no one else wants the job.
Jesse, did you have your hand up?
I was literally just going to say the same thing. There was a long pause. I put my hand up and said that I would volunteer if no one else does, but I'm not hard and fast that I need to nominate myself.
Okay, if any of you would like to step aside so the other person is in and we don't have to have an election, I'll be happy to do that as well. But are there any other nominations on top of that? Okay, I see no more nominations, so if either of you are interested in stepping aside, then that's fine, but we can have a vote here if we would like to have a vote for the vice chair.
Since
Okay.
my mic's still on, I'm happy to step aside. Michelle, if you would like to take it over. If it's something that's you would prefer not to, then I don't care, but I'm happy to step aside.
Sure, no problem. I will go ahead with that nomination then.
Okay, thank you. So what we have is a nomination for Michelle Dakin as vice chair. And there's no other nominations before us. So can I get a mover and a seconder? And the motion is to approve Michelle Dakin as the vice chair of Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. That's Irene moved it. Can I get a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, David and Corinne. So we'll just take Corinne because she's here. Thanks very much. So that's Michelle is the vice chair. Thank you, Michelle, and welcome. Pardon? Oh, yeah, sorry. We don't need a vote in there. But there's only one. They're claimed. You did? Oh, okay. I'm told that by that I need to have a vote to approve. So can I get a vote to approve Michelle as the vice chair? All in favor? You can just put your hands up on your. Any opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Now I have to do a land acknowledgement. So if you'll just bear with me for a moment, the town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize a special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands. And as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and the Chippewas, recognized through the Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Thank you. Item number 3 is simply the approval of the agenda. I believe the agenda was sent to you by a link to the town website. So can I get a motion to approve the revised agenda as was circulated by the Legislative Services? Motion, please.
I wasn't here last time, so.
Well, no, this is just for the agenda, but you had a revised agenda sent to you. So if you're okay with the agenda, then we just need a mover and a seconder. So Irene will move it. Do we have a seconder for the agenda? Michelle, thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the agenda before we move along? Okay, I'll call a vote then. All in favor of approving the agenda? Hands up, please. Any opposed? Seeing none, we approve the agenda. Number 4 is any declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interests? Okay, seeing none, we can move on. We have no minutes to receive, so nothing to approve. We will have that for the next one. And we have no delegations this evening. We just have 2 presentations. So we have some matters under consideration that were in the agenda, and you have a package that was given to you. Our first matter under consideration is a memorandum from the manager of business support regarding the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. This is a draft presentation. And this is being presented by Mr. Furman, who's the manager of business support. Welcome, John. And we have 10 minutes.
Okay.
Great. Present should be coming up on your screen. So if anybody's having trouble with it, please let us know. But the screen is there. So John, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. As Councillor Wee said, I'm just going to present a quick overview of the current draft Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Next slide. All right, okay. So the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is intended to guide our decision-making over the next 5 years. It's an update to our last master plan, which was approved by council in 2016. So the new master plan takes into consideration growth factors, emerging trends, public consultations, updated norms within the areas. We look at other municipalities within and outside of York Region to see what's trending and compare to other services in a similar capacity as well. So the scope of the plan is intended to include indoor recreation facilities such as our aquatic centers, arenas, gymnasiums, centers like that. Outdoor recreation facilities, sports fields, playgrounds, various sports courts, whether it be basketball, tennis, pickleball, and our parks and open spaces. The plan considered a variety of inputs, including public and stakeholder consultation, demographic information, participation trends in different sports, municipal benchmarking, as I said, and various supporting policies and procedures within the town. Our public engagement started last summer and included a community survey. We had 544 total responses, 455 from residents. We held a pop-up booth at the Aurora Farmers Market where we engaged over 75 individuals to get their ideas and comments. A variety of stakeholder workshops with our various sport and community groups that utilize our facilities. There was consultation with our youth committee, various staff consultations, council consultations, and there's still input going on, which is part of what we're here for tonight, is to present this to you and then get further feedback from this committee as well. This is just a quick snapshot. There's more detail in the actual draft plan, which you all have, but this are some of the results from the community survey, with the most popular parks and recreation activities through the survey being walking and hiking, special events in our parks, cycling, indoor swimming, and playgrounds. And like I say, the full detailed list is in the draft plan that you have available to you with additional information to further explain some of these numbers. Some of the notes that some of the things that we noticed out of the survey is 44% identified that they are unable to participate as often as they would like, with the main barriers being lack of desired facilities or programs, the program or activity being full, or just a lack of personal time to participate in the program. We found one of the largest gaps between expectations and satisfaction being in outdoor recreation facilities, where 86% felt that outdoor recreation facilities are important, but only 60% were satisfied with the current options available. Some more survey information here. Priorities identified for facility investment going forward. 87% identified nature trails. Another 87% also identified park washroom facilities. Multi-use trails, parkland acquisition, and playgrounds were all the highest ranking priorities identified for future investments. So some of the highlights of what we heard so far, some of the broader themes are a need to expand options for outdoor recreation, whether it be disc golf, outdoor rinks, off-leash dog parks, splash pads, playgrounds, enhancing facilities such as adding lighting or repurposing sports fields for other needs. supporting local and regional organizations through sport-friendly activities such as indoor pools and turf fields, and addressing changing demographics where we're seeing growth diversity in seniors populations or persons with disabilities, making sure that we're adapting to those changing demographics. Some of the trends and emerging influence that we've identified are that communities are increasingly viewing recreation and parks as essential services and believe that these will be critical contributor to our recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've seen a lot of evidence of that in the last couple of years. We're also experiencing, as is the broader community, recent staffing and volunteer shortages have impacted numerous communities, and that creates challenges in maintaining service levels. Outdoor recreation is on the rise. We've seen that trending for a few years now, and many communities are reimagining existing spaces. Municipalities are also placing a growing emphasis on inclusion, barrier-free accessibility, affordability, and considering climate change. Some selected recommendations that have come forward so far for indoor recreation facilities are the need to continue pursue options for securing land to support a community center in the southwest quadrant of town, with the intent of including an indoor pool, gymnasium, walking track, and other program space. Also, longer term, to consider preparing a study to consider arena needs and options for repurposing the Aurora Leisure Complex rink into a dry land, non-ice activities space. That's longer term, as we see some trends in ice sports declining slowly over years. That's something to look at down the road if and when we determine that we don't need a fifth ice pad. Or outdoor recreation facilities. Some of the recommendations include completing a scoped review and update to the sports field development strategy with a focus on replacing the fields that will be losing on the Stronach lands in a couple of years. Establishing an outdoor pickleball complex with at least 6 courts and considering a partnership with a club to help organize pickleball activities. Advancing reconstruction of the Aurora Family Leisure Complex skateboard park. Addressing gaps in playground and sport court provision through future park projects, and preparing a business plan to consider options for a refrigerated outdoor ice rink. Parkland recommendations include updating parkland policies to reflect changing legislation and Aurora's urban structure, striving to achieve a service level of 2 hectares per 1,000 residents, which would provide 17.2 hectares of additional parkland by 2031. Taking a parkland first approach to securing land and maximizing community access to non-municipal sites, and developing a strategy for the renewal of key park sites. For example, Confederation Park is our large community park in the West End, and that is up for complete reconstruction in 2026. So looking at how we approach the renewal of those lands. Service delivery and program support recommendations include fully implementing the recreation user fee and pricing policy, conducting a comprehensive review of permitting procedures and allocation policies, undertaking a recreation program review and special events policy to clarify levels of service, and to continue collaboration with schools to enhance access and community and creation of community hubs. So our next steps, the draft master plan is currently available for review on our project website at engageaurora.ca. You all have it as part of your meeting package. The deadline for further written feedback is May 3rd, so that's Wednesday next week. We will be holding an in-person open house on Monday, May the 1st. That will be at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex at 7 p.m. in the UC Mass program room. That's open to the public to drop in and see, talk to staff and the consultants regarding the draft and provide further input. The final version of the plan will then be compiled and presented to council at the June 6th General Committee meeting for approval. So if there's any comments and questions, I'd be happy to respond, and I'll just kind of close off also by encouraging you to review the draft plan that you have and by all means, send an email to myself or to our consultant. The contact information is on the website, and we'd be happy to receive any further input that the committee has.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. And I will encourage you all to come out to the open house. Number one, the open house, I believe, is, I'm asking you also, it's less formal than a formal presentation, but there will be some presentations, but opportunities for people to actually talk to the Monteith and Brown and anybody else from our group.
Yes, it's going to be it's very informal. There's going to be a number of like poster boards to just to demonstrate, show some of the highlights of the draft plan, and then we'll be there to answer any questions and to receive any feedback that you have.
Yeah, and just a reminder that any written comments that you're asking for, those can be sent by email to you.
Yep.
Dave Berman at firman@aurora.ca, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you don't have to wait, and but as long as you have them in by May 3rd, right? Okay, now, other comments and questions. Hands up if you want to have a question to John or anybody else here. So are there any questions from the floor? Irene?
Just a quick question. What was the time for the open house? Is it 7?
7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Have a meeting that night. I'll have to get here otherwise.
All right.
The question, if you didn't hear it, was what time? 7 to 9 p.m. Other questions from the floor? Michelle, you have the floor.
Thanks. I'm just curious, one of the main points is that there's been an increase in outdoor activities recently, and the basis of some of the recommendations are due to the increase in outdoor activities. I'm wondering what you did in your report to decipher between what is an actual increase in the outdoor activities due to the natural progression of people being outdoors, and what is due to COVID forcing people to be outdoors. So I just want to ensure that when we're looking at this from a parks perspective and growth within the town and looking at the different types of activities, how are we accounting for the fact that we've been generally asking people to go outside over the last 3 years, and that we might see that trend going back to being indoors? So how did you decipher between the two?
Thanks, John.
Yeah. So it's a little difficult at this because we're at that early stages of what we're calling post-COVID. So it's certainly something that we want to keep an eye on. We look at things like trends as well. So for example, pickleball. We know pickleball has been the fastest growing sport in North America pre-COVID as well. So we're very comfortable in assuming that it's going to continue to grow and be sustained in popularity. We're initially just looking at talking to some of our community sport organizations. They're seeing that registration trends are staying constant this year compared to the previous year. So where we might have seen a drop off last year or this year, if they were now moving away from outdoor activities, we're not seeing a drop. They're still, for the most part, they're maintaining, but it's certainly something that we have to keep an eye on. So when it comes to outdoor sports fields, because we're doing an update later this year as well on our sports field development strategy, and that's a longer term. We certainly won't be accomplishing all the new sports fields that we need in the next 12 months. So we'll continue to monitor that as we look at recommendations for bringing new facilities online. But yeah, registration is certainly something we have to monitor. But like I say, for now, we've tried to look at it as best we can, but it's still those early days, like I say.
Michelle, do you have a follow-up on that?
No, thank you.
Okay, next up is David.
Yeah, just a quick question. I noticed when I was looking at the data, like the results from your survey, the activities that seem to be more favored among the respondents is outdoor parkland trails, stuff that often, is family oriented, doesn't involve booking per se. But then under the section of the survey where you're asking people, where you got data on what people believe was lacking, a lot of that was prioritized on, lack of programs available, programs being full. So they're kind of contrary to each other a little bit. So when you're looking at a capital investment, where to invest and prioritize, which of those two would you kind of be leaning towards prioritizing? I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't know that we necessarily say pick one over the other. We have to look at the different components of, like in all areas, what are some of the demands? We do have a a trails and active transportation master plan as well. So that will get more detailed into trails needs and some of the passive needs. What we'll do is we're still in the process of identifying what those priorities are. And when the final plan is produced, it'll identify all the recommendations. It will attempt to prioritize them, but then that's where, staff will continue to investigate, and council will also determine priorities as we move forward on where we invest the money into the different needs and changes.
Follow up, David?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Shaheen, see your hand up?
Yeah. When I was looking at the master plan, maybe you can direct me in this direction because I didn't see it. I'm looking to find out how are we going to address the fact that we don't really have an fully accessible playground in all of Aurora. We have Jubilee, but Jubilee actually is not fully accessible because it has mulch. And if you look at, like if you're trying to take a wheelchair into that area, you can't. We also just lost Spirit Playground, which was a hub in Aurora, because it needs to be rebuilt. And that was the only fully accessible playground in all of Aurora. So what are we going to do for the children that need an accessible playground? Like I didn't see anywhere where we have plans to make our playgrounds more accessible, because it's important that children play together.
John?
Yeah. So the plan does address it right in the draft plan. You'll find it in section 7.11, page 89. The plan does identify that we do have a need for an accessible playground space in town, and it recommends that as we move forward with replacing playgrounds or bringing new playgrounds online, that we put an emphasis on including accessible components to those playgrounds.
So a question to you: instead of rebuilding, like waiting for a new playground to be put together, what could we do to make the existing playgrounds accessible?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, it's the same thing. It would just be moving a refit up sooner. So our 10-year capital plan anticipates the life cycle of the playground equipment, and so that we plan to replace the equipment when it's kind of reaching that stage where it's it's outlived its expected life cycle. Council can always choose to accelerate any of those plans, but then you always have to monitor the financial impacts of that as well, and that's why the plan typically would recommend that you do it within your natural retrofit cycle. Okay,
I understand that point, but which parks are now going to be needing a new life, basically? So which ones do we have, like a list of the playgrounds that are going to be needing rebuild?
I would have to check. I would assume our parks department would know what the cycle is and what the schedule is. I don't happen to know that off the top of my head,
okay,
but there would be a plan in place.
Because we do. Yeah.
Just to interrupt, I've asked that question also, and John's quite right. The Parks Department has a refurbishment plan that they visit these parks and they know what was done first, second, third, fourth. So what I will do is I'll ask parks people to give us a playground plan. And your comment about the change of them from a typical playground to an accessible playground. We'll make sure that comment gets captured. And I thank you
Because
for it.
a lot of the playgrounds nowadays don't last just 10 years. They last anywhere from 25 to 30 years because of the new materials being used. So I don't think we can wait that long for these children not to have an accessible playground. So like I said, I don't know which ones are up for rebuild. I know that Highview Public School, we'd have to put a motion through to help that one out. But Jubilee is definitely not a fully accessible playground. I've been there myself and I've walked about with a wheelchair. It's not possible.
Okay, thank you. I see a hand up, David, you had your hand up again. I don't know if you want a second question or not. If not, you can put your hand down on the screen, but there's someone that is iPhone and I don't know. Is that Adrian? Is that you?
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't know my name wasn't showing up.
Okay. Can you just introduce yourself, Adrian, because we asked people to say who you are, where you live, and a little bit about why you're here on the committee. And then if you have a question about the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, we'll let you have that after. Can you do that for us?
Oh yeah, my name is Adrian Martin. I've been living in Aurora since I was like 12, I believe. And I went to Aurora High School. I joined the sports committee because I wanted to try and make a change on some concerns that I've experienced living here as being an athlete along with my friends. So I took it as an opportunity to try and add some improvements to our town to make it better.
Okay, thank you. Now, is your hand up because you want to have a comment?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So like I've been here for a while now, and I would always go play basketball with my friends. There's a there's a park near my old house called Chapman Park. There's Chapman Park, and then there's another Mavernack Park as well. So like whenever we would go play basketball, our night would end early, like in the summertime, because it gets dark and you can't see at like after 8:30. And I was wondering if you guys ever plan on putting like those lamp posts that turn off at like 11:59, the white lights. Cause like whenever I go to Vaughan or like Mississauga, they all have those. So like everyone's just playing outside like games for like 4 more hours to have a bit more fun. So I was wondering if you guys plan on adding lights at the parks like overnight.
Sure. There's no plans at this time to add additional outdoor lighting. Within those community parks, there's always that balance of providing the facilities, but then also how late do you encourage the activity? I'm not aware of any plans. It's not to say that it couldn't be done if there was a need identified and the interest was there and council gave direction to do so. Lighting is something that could be added, but I'm not aware of any plans at this time.
Okay, because I feel like it would be better if we got lights, like more entertainment, because like everyone just goes home. A lot of people say Aurora is boring, and I feel like it would add more excitement like to the community and bring more people together if we could get some brightness out there. Because I know the soccer fields have it, so that's another thing. The soccer fields have it, so I don't know why the basketball courts don't.
Adrian, on top of that, and maybe we can capture this too, I've had people from around Summit ask the same thing. I think there's a basketball court there, and the group around there. It seems like basketball is one of those ones where there's suddenly a group of people that are interested, and then they may not be interested another 5 years from now, but they seem to be interested now. So I'll just add Summit to the other to the group, if you don't mind. Any other comments on Mr. Furman's presentation? If you wake up at 3 o'clock and say, I should have said this, then you can also go to the open house on the 1st, and you can ask, I assume you'll be there, Mr. Furman, and you can ask more. Oh, sorry, Jesse. Second time, Jesse? Or maybe it's the first time.
Sorry, hi. I actually just wanted to jump on Adrian's question there. I think that is something that would be worth following up. We don't cater as much. I know that we have youth recognition nationally, but for outdoor activities, not registered activities, we don't cater as much to the youth demographic, like the teen, older teens, and honestly, lighting drop-in outdoor basketball courts would be amazing for the opportunity for youth. So this is something that we should probably look into, and
Okay.
it's not super expensive.
Great, thanks. And I think you'll see in the master plan too, there seems to be a more interest in less supervised activities, drop-in types of things that you mentioned before. And maybe we've missed the mark because we wanted to organize things a lot more often than of recent. And maybe this is a great unintended consequence of COVID, as that more people are more interested in playing sports outside. John?
And I could, just checking while you were talking, and there actually is a recommendation in the draft plan that as a pilot project, we should consider installing lights on an existing basketball court. It actually suggests Summit Park to accommodate extended play. So that is one of the recommendations right now, is to try to look at that as a pilot project.
Great.
Okay, I'd like to move on, but I still see Adrian and Shaheen with a hand up. So do you have a residual hand up from your previous one, or do you want to be recognized for a second time?
I was just gonna add a comment, but like he already answered it kind of. I was just saying, because in the past, like we would literally like leave the town to go play somewhere else just because of the lights. So it's like I feel like it's less work for us if we got that done. So it's a good thing that they're looking into it.
Great, thanks. I know the town is growing out in all directions, and so Parks and Recreation is having to worry about what's going on in the south and the north and the west and the east, and try to balance all that up. So thank you for the comment. And Shaheen, do you have a second time?
Yeah, I have a quick question about the open house. When the comments are coming from the residents, will the Parks and Recreation team or committee get to see those comments?
All the individual comments wouldn't come back to the committee. We've as I was saying earlier, we've received 455 surveys. We've received numerous written submissions from residents or groups. All that feeds into the consultant and the work they do in compiling the overall plan based on all that feedback.
Shaheen?
Okay, that does answer my question, but does it come into like, will we get like some graph form in regards to it so that we get a picture? Because we're hearing feedback from like people in our neighborhoods. So, it would be nice to hear from the open house what was discovered.
I mean, we don't know what we're going to get in the open house. There's no plan to provide a documentation of all the comments back to the committee or to council for that matter either. It could potentially be a lot of data, and that would be one source of information only. So it wouldn't be reflective of all the data that's come in, because there's all that other community input that we've received through other formats like the drop-in at the farmer's market, or the survey, or all the written comments we received previously. So to try to isolate just the comments from the open house wouldn't really be reflective of everything that has seen. So the way the study is done is all the feedback from all those sources go into the one central repository with the consultant. The consultant summarizes and weights it accordingly and provides their recommendations based on that. An example I'll give you is in the survey, we received a large number of comments really emphasizing the need for disc golf. But when we analyze it more carefully, the vast majority of those surveys were from people who lived outside of Aurora, not from Aurora residents. So you have to factor that in as well when analyzing the comments, where it was a small number of Aurora residents expressed interest in disc golf, but there was clearly a group that formed outside of town that wanted to emphasize disc golf, but it, based on when you look at the residency, it's not necessarily reflective of what this community wants.
Jean? Okay,
Okay, yep, that's fine.
I know you'd like to be able to drill down for your neighborhood and see what your neighborhood's thinking about, and there's nothing to keep you from asking around and asking them to come to the open house and identifying where they live and that type of thing, but I guess we're just not as sensitive as we could be in terms of postal codes or things of that nature, so it's a difficult data mining problem, so thank you. No other comments or questions? We can move along to the next otherwise. Seeing none then, I'll call the vote. All in favor of receiving the can I get a motion to receive the presentation then? And comments. So I can't.
Jesse.
Jesse, okay. Can I get a seconder?
Shaheen, yeah.
Shaheen, okay, thank you very much. No other comments, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thanks very much. Now, before I move on to 7.2, which is our senior planner who's going to talk about the update of the Aurora's Parkland dedication bylaw, I neglected to have Lisa introduce herself. Lisa is here and works with the Community Service Department, but I'll let you introduce yourself and say a few words. So I apologize for not, I just went around the room and I missed you. So
That's
Lisa.
okay. So my name is Lisa Worth. I am staff here at the town. I'm the manager of recreation. So I'm going to be, myself and my colleague Sarah Teenkamp, who is the manager of parks, we're going to be the staff representatives on this committee. So you'll see one or both of us at each of your meetings, and we're just here to sort of provide support and guidance if there's any questions, sort of in, you know, the work that we're doing, if we can you know, add and provide information throughout the meetings. That's our role, is to just provide support to the chair and answer any questions that committee members might have in the course of our quarterly meetings. So, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. And that's really important because this is the connection we have to parks, recreation and community services. So I appreciate what you bring to the table, and it gives us a whole level of expertise that some of us just don't have. And so I want to thank you for the time you put in here. So 7.2 is a memorandum from our senior policy planner regarding the update of the town parkland dedication bylaw. And before I introduce him, can I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion? So can I get a mover? Irene, seconded by Corinne. It's moved and seconded that the memorandum regarding the update to the town of Aurora's Parkland dedication bylaw is received. You have that in your package. And that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee comments regarding the update to the Parkland dedication bylaw is received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. Does any of the staff have any? Yeah, Matthew, are you there?
I am here. Thank you,
Okay,
Councillor Reese.
thank you, Matthew. Okay, so can we hear from you, and
Sure.
people can follow along with the material that was provided earlier?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it up on my screen as well, just so we have a
Thanks.
fallback. So first of all, thank you everyone for having me this evening. I'm happy to talk to you about our Parkland dedication bylaw update. It pairs nicely with John's update on the Parks and Rec master plan. So the main impetus for us, oh, am I still connected?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I got a big pop-up that says Zoom quit unexpectedly in the middle of my screen, but as long as you can hear me, I'm going to ignore that. That's funny. Okay. Where was I? So the reason for this update is not only because we're updating the parks.
Now we did move it. All that time.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm back. Okay. Thank goodness. All right. Let's try that for the third time. So the reason I'm here tonight and the reason we're updating our bylaw is, first of all, because our Town of Aurora Parkland dedication bylaw hasn't been updated in a number of years, but also some legislative changes through the provincial government through bills 109 and 23 required us to update our parkland dedication bylaw to make use of some policies that basically allow us to take the maximum amount of parkland we can with new development. And for those who have never heard of a parkland dedication bylaw before, parkland dedication is what any new developer or somebody redeveloping a property would have to pay in terms of conveyance of physical parkland or cash in lieu thereof parkland. So what I'm going to do really quickly, I'm not going to read line by line, but I'm going to run through some of the major changes. So currently and previously, the town collected parkland at a rate of 2% of land value with a development. So say you had a block of land, you were coming in to develop it under the Ontario Planning Act with some sort of site plan of subdivision, a condominium, you'd be required to convey parkland through the Ontario Planning Act. And those rates presently were 2% for commercial and industrial. So 2% of your total land value or total land in area or land value, so cash in lieu, and then 5% for residential. Now, part of the provincial changes that have happened over the last, I guess, 2 years have made changes to what's called the alternate rate. And the alternate rate only applies to residential. And that rate is a rate of 1 hectare per 300 units, or was, this is the old rate, and it's changed now to 1 hectare per 600 units. And when I say units, it can be single detached, it can be townhomes, apartments, so on and so forth. If we're asking for cash, that rate would become 1 hectare per 1,000 units. So if you're getting parkland, you get a bit better of a rate. And if you're getting cash, it's a bit lesser of a rate. As John indicated in our Parks and Rec master plan, the preference is always to secure parkland. And as that same Parks and Rec master plan identified, we have about 17 hectares or so, hectares or acres, John, of land to secure in the next, I guess, 7 years. My math is falling behind this late. And so the biggest things that have changed in the Planning Act are basically highlighted in these bullets. So like I just mentioned, 2% and 5% remains the same. There are some new exemptions. So projects that are deemed affordable and attainable as defined in the Ontario Planning Act. Those definitions are still being finalized, but those will either be exempt from parkland or have a reduction in parkland that's required. Like I mentioned, the alternate rate that's been included and changed in this update. Again, provincially mandated, not something we can choose. Another big one is that parkland dedication is now challengeable through the Ontario Land Tribunal, which is essentially a provincial system that's in place to mandate planning decisions that are appealed. So parkland is one of those things. And when I say appealed, someone might say, I don't want to give 2% of my land in value. The value is this amount. So that process would sort through those appeals. Now, one of the things that's required in order to update our bylaw is a parks plan, which John just presented on. And the piece of that that's the most important is what's called the supply analysis, or how much physical parkland we have in Aurora. And like we identified, 17 hectares of land deficit over the next 7 or 8 years is a very big number. So I anticipate if we were ever challenged by a developer on what they owe in parkland, we'd have very good justification and likely win that appeal on the basis that we can demonstrate need for parkland in Aurora. A couple other things that are included and pieces of sort of customability of our bylaw is that we're accepting the potential of things called POPs and strata parks. POPs are, say you had a high density development, like a small condo And they had a public amenity space in terms of like a little tiny dog run or a small playground. That would be an agreement entered between the town and the developer, and that would be kind of a maintenance agreement and who's in charge of who, but it would be a publicly accessible space. It wouldn't just be something that the residents of that building would be able to use. And so one of the things we've customized in this bylaw is that 50% of that dedication would count towards every 100% of their total. So essentially, we're reducing that amount of what we would accept for that pop park or strata park, because we'd rather have a park that's completely unencumbered. And when I say unencumbered, no sharing ownership or anything like that. That's the other piece that's included within this. We've limited encumbrances in our bylaw. Now, the Minister of Housing has the ability to override an encumbrance. And when I say encumbrance, we normally wouldn't plan a park on anything that can limit the ability of what you can put in the park, like floodplain or a parking garage below a building. We don't have any rooftop parks in Aurora, but some of the municipalities that are near us are looking at these examples. So best to put it in our bylaw and list those lists of inclusions and exclusions. In terms of next steps, so right now this bylaw, actually I want to, before I say this, our bylaw is basically taking the maximum allowed method of calculating and asking for parkland that we could possibly do legally. So every option that's in the Planning Act, whether it's the alternate rate or the 2 and 5%, there's wording that basically says we have the opportunity and ability to take the higher amount in any case. So every tool that's provided to us by the provincial government in order to ask for parkland with development, we are absolutely taking advantage of in this bylaw. There's nothing left on the table in that regard. So like I was saying, next steps, staff are now just sifting through the details of our bylaw. This is a policy that would be presented to council and have to be approved by council. There'd then be a 30-day waiting period where we could receive any appeals, and those can be made by public bodies. They can be done by associations, members of the public, so on and so forth. I don't foresee that happening. We will consult with the building and land development industry, BUILD. They are an association that basically is made up of development corporations throughout the GTA, and they have a loud voice when it comes to development charges and things like that. As soon as we have that draft done, we will be sending it to them for comment, so that, and what they usually do is circulate to all of their developers. So we will collect that feedback, but again, there's not really much that we're customizing here. We're taking as much as we can, as much as we're allowed to. And not unlike every other municipality in Ontario, we're going with the flow, so to speak, with these new legislative changes because they've only been in effect for a few months. So yeah, if that's all I have for this update, but I'm happy to take any questions, any considerations, and I can explain anything that may have sounded like big planning jargon.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Volpentesta. The comments that the committee makes will be recorded here. So if you have some comments about this draft, now's the time to do it. And the same thing will happen as we did before. I'll take any questions from the committee and they'll be recorded, and we'll try to make an answer through that. So I'm opening the floor. See that. Raise your hand if you're
Yeah.
Matt, can you stop sharing, and then we can we'll have a better view of the committee online. Thanks.
There you
go. Michelle, sorry.
Thank you. My question is in regards to the parkland dedication, whether it's space or a monetary value, did you say that that's the decision of the developer and not the town? So the developer decides whether or not they're going to donate or they're going to provide parkland versus money?
Great question. No, it's through you, Chair. Thank you. It is the option of the town to take cash or land. There is now one piece. If we do ask for land, apparently it can be appealed now where that land falls. So there's abilities for the developer to say, we want this park on our property. The town can request it somewhere else if it's of better use. That's one of those pieces that legislatively we haven't seen challenged yet by anyone. It hasn't happened. But we'll prepare ourselves to demonstrate very localized need in our parks analysis. So we could, for example, if we were to be challenged on that, where a park should go. So again, we get the ability to take cash versus park, but if we want to be able to represent where a park would go, we could have our landscape architect do that analysis, and that would be presented in an OLT case where we would say, this is the demonstrated need for a park in this area. We would use mapping, walkability studies, things like that to help support ourselves, but it hasn't happened yet.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a follow-up, Michelle?
Yes, sorry, as an aside, and I missed the beginning, and obviously it's different when you're on Zoom. For the formality of the meeting, am I supposed to be going through you as the chair before asking any questions, or am I open to ask questions without?
Preferred. Yes.
Pardon?
Yeah,
Preferred?
it's preferred, yes.
Okay. You never know when you're on Zoom. Okay, so then through you then, and a follow-up question is in that case, then does the town outside of this bylaw have procedures in place to ensure, or procedures that identify when a parkland would be preferred over monetary value? And because you've been discussing how developers can appeal decisions that the town makes. So are there procedures in place and assessments in place to determine whether or not parkland versus a monetary donation will be accepted?
Thank you. Matt, comment on that?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I don't think the landscape architect team has a set of written policies or procedures. I think they're sort of doing a case by case basis of where they know, and Gary Gradanius and Brian Jacovina are two of our landscape architects that have worked for the town for a long time. And they have a very good idea of needs. Same thing with Sarantini Camp in certain areas, and then they would build off, I think, recommendations in the Parks and Rec master plan for those site-specific opportunities. So if they see there's a need at a certain park that maybe can be identified through a development, they might push for that example. But it's a great example. It's a great question, rather, and I think I'm going to take that back, because there might need to be a set of like written procedures and sort of checks, and whether that's like, you know, like a 15-minute walking radius. Is there a park of a certain size within a radius? Yeah, that's a good point. And I think as we get challenged, we'll figure that out a bit more too. Yeah.
Okay.
If we
Good
get
question, good answer, and thanks for taking it back. I will say that when the consultant on the master plan presented to council, the comment was green space first. And that's possibly because we don't have a lot of green space to play with in this community. So the proclivity here is to make sure that when we have a green space allocation, we try to take it in land. But I appreciate your comment, and it helps us, Matt, to be able to say, well, what is within the area? And so I like the comment. Thanks very much, and hopefully we'll get an answer back. Any other questions from other people? Any of the staff have comments that they want to add, or questions that want to add? Okay, so if there's no further comments, I'll just call the vote to receive and to refer the questions. All in favor? Hands up. Super. No opposed? Thanks very much. That carries. We have no informational items tonight, nor new business. But if there's anything that anybody would like to talk about, then we can certainly add this. Does anybody have any new business that they want us to consider? Irene.
It's not really new business, it's maybe more information. I'm not sure if this is the forum or not to it, but like the Arboretum has some activities coming up that maybe others would be interested in knowing.
Okay, that's a PSA, a public service announcement.
Yeah,
Okay,
sort of like that.
well, here,
So I can either just give this to Linda to put, or I can tell you, I mean, like, we have tree tour coming up. We're going to be addressing some invasive species. So that's this time of year, it's the garlic mustard, and we're having 3 events to have volunteers come out and help us pull it out in the Arboretum, and then to learn how to identify it in their own yards and their own local parks.
Right.
So that would be one. And we're having a big community planting on May the 6th.
Okay, thanks very much. So we'll put the document in and we'll see if we can get that in a communique out. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Any questions on that by anybody? Irene? No? Any others? Seeing none, that's the end of our agenda, so I'll just call for an adjournment. So if I can get a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Michelle. Seconder. Irene is seconded. All in favor? We're adjourned, but I want to thank each and every one of you for your contribution tonight. Everybody had something to contribute and of interest. So what will happen in the future is we'll get another agenda for the next meeting and the timing of that. And other items of interest, and a lot of them will come from community services. And if we can't get through all the list, we'll just put it on a pending list and we'll try it again another time. So we're in and out in the allotted time. So I want to thank everybody for coming. John, thank you for your presentation. Likewise for Matt and for Lisa for spending your time here on behalf of community services. So the meeting is adjourned. Go Leafs, go.